right, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha, and I'm with Melco's application team. And this is our Design Shop Talk, where we get together to just answer any questions you might have. So just as a matter of procedure, if you have any questions, type them over in the comments on the live feed. I can see about 4 at a time, so if I miss you, I really apologize. Hopefully, I'll try to keep looking shifty-eyed over to the side to make sure I don't miss anything. So type in over there, and we'll get to any questions, any I miss. You can either type in again a little bit later, or I will put them on to next week's. All right, so only had a few questions for this week, and I'll start with there, and while everyone else joins, and we can see what else you guys want to talk about. All right, so there was a question that was put in: if I'm doing 8 key fobs in a hoop, how do I set up the color sequence? The design itself is 3 colors. Okay, and then another question, these are related, and I'm going to cover them at the same time, so I just wanted to, good morning, hi Scott, and good morning Edith. So I also saw that do a lot of applique. My question is, when I purchase an applique design, do I have to add all the stops? All right, so let's first look at how will we do multiple in the hoop designs at once. I just grabbed this because I had it from doing a in the hoop thing, key fobs last year with y'all. So this is a 3-step design. One is it's going to place down the vinyl, basically sew it down. It does all the embroidery on top, whether you have a monogram, whatever it's going to be, goes next. And then the last step, you stick something under the hoop and another layer of vinyl, and then have it run again. All right, so in order for you to be able to get your hands in there, you know, to put the vinyl underneath your applique, you have to be able to put an applique stop in. All right, so if you pretend this was a design you bought, it would be an EXP, a DST, I don't know, pick your poison. So whatever design type it is, all right, you can load whatever you want into the machine. So if you get an EXP, DST, Jeff, Huss, I can name many of them, and they all work the same. So you'll load it to the machine, and when you do that, within OS, now you have to set up the color changes. So this is where you actually program, basically, you've got your 3 color changes. Now you have to tell it, when do you want the machine to stop? All right, and that's what this word applique is. Now, the question that had was, well, do I have to put in the stops? Well, yes and no. I think you're asking, do you have to put stops into the digitized file? No, you don't, but when you set up the file to actually sew, that's where you have to tell it, where do you want to have these applique stops, all right? So if you want it to sew color 1 and then stop and have the hoop come out from under the machine, you would put color 1, in this case, is color 4, so, or needle 4, so color 1 will sew with needle 4. Then after it finishes that color, the machine will stop, the hoop will come out from under the needle case, and it will sit there waiting for you to do something. Whether you're going to cut out the little shape, you're going to add another applique fabric, whatever it might be, okay? So that's what the word applique is, and how you do that is you literally click 4 and then click the word applique. Whenever you click that, when it's that turn in the sequence of the file and it hits there, it will go ahead and program in a stop. All right, so again, it would, once you finish whatever you're going to do with the hoop, you'd hit start. The hoop would pull back under the machine, and so step 2 with, you know, in this case, needle 15. And then when it was going to change to go to color 3, again, I've got the word applique there, so the machine will stop. The hoop will come out from under the needle case, and it will sit there waiting for you to do whatever you're going to do. Once you hit the green button again, it pulls it back under and finishes it. Okay, so that's how you set up appliques. Now, the file itself is just 3 color changes. All right, so I don't have to do anything as long as I have the 3 color changes in there. It's, you know, if you're buying applique files from, you know, the different shops that do that, they should have the color changes programmed out so that you can put the applique stops in when you set up the machine to run. Okay. All right, so, oh, and that question also was, how do I set up the colors if I'm doing a bunch in one hoop? Kind of a loaded question. And why I say that is there is a tendency to want to take this design. Let's say if I were going to do all of these in one, right? So I'm going to take this hoop, I'm going to run it all at once. There is a tendency for people to want to do it this way, where you run all of color 1. So I sew all of these down, And then I go sew all of these down, right? Now, the downside to doing that, particularly across large frames, is the more you do it, the more risk you're inducing of having things moving around. A lot of these in the hoop type projects are actually floating on top of the hoop, which is even worse. So if you're not actually hooping it with a mighty hoop or something that's holding it, hey Mandy, then what you'll see is you'll end up with things not lining up quite right because of shifting with push pull and just motion within there. But let's say this design, you know you're going to hoop it well and there's no way it's going to move. How do we arrange it so it does each color sequentially rather than like I have here where it's sewing 15 color changes, finishing one complete one at a time? All right, well, what you'd want to do is take your colors and rearrange them. So all I'm doing is for each of these design element segments, I'm grabbing color 1, which is just the outline, and I'm left clicking and dragging it to the top. Okay, so there's the last one. So now I can merge these. A bunch of ways you can merge it: by clicking on this little guy over here, that will throw this into the one above it, or I tend to just hold my shift key down, and so select the first one just by clicking, left click. Now I hold the shift key on my keyboard, go to the last element and left click, and you'll see it selects everything. So now I can come over to my color palette and go, okay, make that black. All right. What about color 2? We do the same thing. Hey, Rick. So we go through and drag each one of those up. Oops. There we go. All right, one more. And now we've got to merge those again. So again, click the first one, hold the shift key, click the last one, hit orange. Okay, hey Rachel. All right, last one. They're all in these separate little design things now, so you are going to have to drag them and put them together and then merge them. I like deleting these because they shouldn't be there. Now I have a file that is set up to where it will run color 1, it sews it all down. Color 2, it does all the all the monograms, whatever you're putting on there, so the detail work. And then the last one, I shove my vinyl under the hoop and make it go. So the key though is to really think about, especially when you're doing a lot in one hoop, whether you can safely do that many at once without having shift in there. Okay, it may be better off to do 2 at a time, 2, 2, and then 1, or something like that, or maybe going the center 1, then the outer 2, and the other 2. But that's really how dense is your design is what's going to play a role in that, and how much stitching you have. Okay. All right. So what other questions do we have? All right. So that was those. How do I set up the color sequence? It has 3 colors. Well, you just rearrange them. And then I showed how we do the applique stops by hitting the applique button. All right. Good morning, Sam. Something got typed in. I have 2 machines. Whenever I try to do this on one machine, I notice that disrupts my settings on the other machine. I'm not sure what caused that. Unfortunately, it happens late in the day, and I cannot call for help. Have you seen it? If you sew each design separately in OS, do you have to set each color separate for all designs? Okay, so let's look at the first one. Or actually, that one's easy to answer. No. This design, let's say this is only 3 colors, and I'm going to do the same 3 repeated. So if I go over to my original file here where I had them all separated, so let me close this and just reopen it. I could, where is it? There it is. So if I had it like this, I could just program 3 colors and then an applique stop. Actually, yeah, I wouldn't even need that. Just 3 colors so that after it finishes the third one, it will go back to the first. So it'll just keep repeating that until the end of the design. So the other question, the settings are getting disrupted on other machines. I don't know what machine you have. If you're on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm just kind of tossing out ideas that you should think about when you're doing it. Where is a picture that I can use? All right, of course it's cropped off. This side where you have multiple machines listed on the main OS screen, make sure you don't have multiple machines clicked over there. So if both of them are highlighted, what you'll notice is it's going to take whatever settings you're doing and apply it to both machines. Another thing, that if you have multiple operators running, if one of them actually pushes the center key, like the bullseye, while you're doing settings, that kind of has the software switch over to looking at that machine. So you can end up with settings that whoever's messing on the computer end up on the wrong machine. I run 9 machines here, and we we learned that one just by having way too many people messing with machines while we're trying to each do our own thing on machines. So those would be the main things I would look at. As long as you don't have them both highlighted, it should just take to the machine that you're messing with. So whatever one's active on the screen is where it should set. Okay. All right. Can you take an expanded design and turn it into an OFM without having to digitize it? Or can you convert each element separate? Yes. So there's, again, I think that's kind of a loaded question. I'm not quite sure what you're looking to do, but let's just look at a few different ways. So if I go open an EXP, I have EXPs here. All right, so I open an EXP file, and let's say I don't like these color. It was EXP when I opened it. You can see that up here. It is an expanded format type. You can see all of these are expanded and there's no wireframe data. If all you're trying to do is open up a file and save it as an OFM to keep the colors, well, what you can do is just go color it to whatever you want it to be. So let's say I want this to be 1637 instead of that one, and that to be 1988. I don't know, whatever. I'm going to do a few. And then let's make that guy that yellow and that black-ish. There we go. All right, so let's say that's what we want. If you come up here and just do a file save as and save it as an OFM, and I don't want to overwrite my original one. All right, so if I save that, it's now an OFM file. It's still, all the color information is now saved into it. So if I open it up again later, so if I close this one and I go File, Open Up that one I just did, all the colors that I just put in there stay with it. Okay, so if that's all you're trying to do is save color information, you can open any file and save color information with there. Now, if what you're trying to do is make these into wireframes that are editable, well, that's when you have to do conversions, right? Now, you don't have to convert the entire file. So rather than coming to the top up here, selecting everything and doing right-click operations, convert to wireframe, which you can do. If you want to do, let's just say the bird is the only thing we want to mess with, right? The rest of it's fine, so why introduce variables into it? So let's just say you want to play with the bird. Well, if I click whichever feature I want to modify, I can go to Operations, Convert to Wireframe, and now you'll see that is now a wireframe. So now I can modify that. There's math behind it. If I don't like the density, I can change that, so on and so forth. Okay, so you can do it by element type or the entire design, converting it over to wireframe. Okay. Keep in mind when you do wireframe conversions, just one thing. This one, you can see there's a kind of a manual walk underlay there. Well, do you really need that? Well, if I come over here and look at my fill underlay, I actually has auto underlay on there, so it's going to do its own underlay. So I don't really need that, do I? So I could delete that one. And again, here, that's a manual tie-off, which if I just put on knots here, and I know the guys don't like it when I call them knots, tie-ins and tie-outs, then I don't have to worry about that either. Okay, change element type is level specific. So the change element type is this button right here. It's the 2 boxes with the little arrow over it. The hotkey for it, so let's say my bird. All right, I'm gonna, oops, undo. All right, I'm gonna copy and paste my bird, move it over here, and then zoom in on it so I can play with it. All right, so let's say I want to take this and I just want the shape of a bird as an outline rather than as a fill. Well, you can do that with change element type right here from one to another and make it a bean stitch maybe. And you can either add or replace. I can say replace, and now the fill's gone, and now it's a bean stitch. Another way you can do that is, remember, Shift is add, Control is replace. So if I hold my bean stitch, click Shift, and now let's say I'll go back to fill. Shift fill. My bean stitch is still there, but now I have a fill. If I want to change this fill over into a satin stitch, I could hold the Control key, select the shape, hold Control, and then click on Single Line Center Input Method. Voila, now it's a single line center. Okay, so that's the change element type. Okay, those are the only ones that I have seen typed in. So let's go back to my other list while you guys think of other ones to type in. How can I make a different thread palette my default? That's on the feature list to be updated. There's no easy way to do that right now, short of messing in text files that are kind of in the noise in the settings. So it's on the list though. How do you go about obtaining that level of software? So if you have a sales rep, go ahead and go ahead and give them a call and see what it would take, what level you have. If you don't know who your sales rep is, just call Melco, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you out and see about doing an upgrade for you. Okay, so I know there used to be a bunch of levels: DesignShop with vectors, Pro and Pro Plus. I think now it's just DesignShop with the vector option, and then Pro Plus, and then Light. Of course, Light has pretty much no digitizing. Okay. Let's see. Can you show us how to digitize decorative ropes ourselves? Yes, and just as this one, we actually did on the January 31st Facebook Live, so you can check it out there as well. But decoratives, I'm always a fan of talking about them because they're my favorite thing to do. So let's see. Let's close that. I don't want to look at that anymore. All right. Where's my rope? Not there. Open. Sorry, I closed everything before I started this. So now I gotta go find it again. Rope. Here's my rope. All right. So digitizing your own rope, your own decorative, it really doesn't, it can be, all right. So when you're digitizing your own decorative, one of the things that you want to make sure you're doing is paying attention to your start and stops and making sure that they're on the same plane. You can see this sample one I didn't do such a good job of that. Marianne, Todd would give him a call. He'd be more than happy to help you out. All right. So what you'll want to do is make sure that whenever you digitize a shape for a decorative, that you have your starts and stops on the same line. I didn't do such a good job when I set this one up. So you can screenshot this. You can the basic shape if you want, or just try your own little shapes until you find one you like. So what you'd want to do is, I used a column 1 just because I like it, and it's literally as simple as just drawing whatever shape you want each of the rope elements to look like. So remember, with a column 1, you're going from one side to the other with a left or right click, depending on if you want it to be a straight point or a curved point. All right, so left clicks are straight points, right clicks are curved points. When you get done, I just trace that one for ease. You're left with what I just drew right there, some sort of random shape, right? So once you do that, what you'll have to do is make sure you move your starts and stops to be on the same line. Having a grid or something active that you can look at is rather helpful, because you got to be able to play with it somewhat. All right, so once you do that, now it's time to create the actual decorative. So question was typed in. I'm more shipping this so I don't forget it. How do I take a design from CorelDRAW to DesignShop Pro? How do I digitize? We'll cover that in a sec. All right, so if I right click, go to Save Custom Shape. I like overriding test until I like something. Save it as our decorative, and yes, I want to replace it. Then try it out. See what you like, what you don't like, and then go again. So I'm going to go for a walk, change this to decorative, draw a shape, and where'd it go? Didn't want to work. All right, let's try. That's bizarre. decorative. Oh, I didn't change it to test. I guess it won't work if I don't change it to test, huh? Sorry. All right. Details. All right. So draw yourself a rope and see if you like it. If you like it, then you would save it off. If you don't like how it's twisted, or try changing your starts and stops, different positions to see how it works. Yeah, that's a good one. Nate says he tries to find rope artwork that he likes the look of and digitize over the artwork, and do just what I did. So you would find whatever artwork it is. There are some out here if you just want to play with it. If you go File, Open, go to your C drive, maybe, or C drive. C drive, Designs. There's an Anchor one out here. I think it's called Anchor. Yeah. So there's an Anchor one. So if you want to just trace some rope, there's lots of little things in there for you to practice with. All right. Or just find whatever shape you like. Try it. Save it as test. Trace it out. Move your starts and stops around until you get something that looks good to you. That's the fun of it. We all have our own unique styles that we think look great or don't. So it's just make it you. You do you, boo. All right. So let's see. Sorry, I'm really goofy today. I've been quarantined too long, I think. Okay. Let's see. The other question was, how do I take a design from Corel Draw to DesignShop Pro? Did that answer your question on the rope? I hope it did. For that, what you'll want to do, if you haven't watched any of the videos, and Melco. All right. So go to Melco. This is where I would suggest you start. All new people should start here. Nate did a fantastic job with all these videos, and they walk you through the entire process. And you can pause them, go through them, and all of that. Oh no, I don't want to hear myself talking. Okay, so what you'll want to do is come over here, click on Media, and then these are the videos. For what you're asking is specifically how do you digitize. So right here under Digitizing Basics, that's where you want to start. Now, if you've done no sewing, no digitizing, don't know anything about the different properties, it's a really good idea to start up here first before this and go through all the videos, because the more you understand about the properties and how thread's going to behave, and the more you sew and practice, the more it starts making sense, so that when you get down into digitizing, you do a sew out, you can look at it and go, I don't like, the threads are too far apart, I see too much fabric, oh, I need to go look at the density, or it's shrinking too much and pulling. Well, I need to go look at pull compensation or my underlays. So that's all covered in these up here. But this talks about the different art types, how to get that art into the software, and so on. So you'd want to kind of go through those videos. I mean, there's no real short way to do it, but really all you'd want to do is save off your artwork and then go find it. I've got some here. Let's look at the butterfly. So you can open up artwork, bring it in, and now you have something you can trace. If it's vector based, that gives you the shape of it. Then you just have to apply stitch directions, what type of stitch you want to do, and so forth. So if you haven't looked at the Melco University ones, they're also on YouTube. I like how it's arranged on Melco University, just because you start at the top and work your way down. It's easy. All right, let's see what else. How do I digitize rope? We did that. All right, how do you stitch on freestanding lace? So this is a question that got emailed in. We've got some freestanding lace. We want to, think of a doily or something. You have some sort of lace that you then want to sew on. So the things you got to think about for that is make sure, depending on how dense your design is, so how the underlay or the lace, you've got to make sure it's going to be able to hold. Okay, so you don't want it to fall out once you rinse it. Practically speaking, you want to use some sort of dissolvable stabilizer, like a cut and wash or a Vilene, something like that. You would go hoop that with your doily or whatever you're going to embroider on. Make sure your file of the design you're putting on there is set up to have nice underlay, so that it's all continuous underlay if it's text and things like that. Edge walk is pretty nice, but you do want to have a really strong underlay to make sure it's all tied together. And then I would put a topper on it before you actually run it. So practically you're going to put a Vilene on the bottom, your doily, and then a topper, and then run your design. Then wash it and make sure it doesn't fall out. Now, other techniques that you can use is you can take what tool, so a shear tool, and put it underneath it, and that way it's, particularly if you have a design that's really, you know, the doily itself is really open, by having the tool there, you've given it some fabric that's not going to go away, but is not really going to distract from the open look of it, to help hold those stitches long term. So I've seen that done, and what you do is literally just put the tool down, sew it. When you're done, cut it really close. A lot of times it'll just rip off if you're, and that'll help hold it all together. All right, so that's another technique for sewing on freestanding lace. But really, the key is to make sure you have everything a really nice underlay and tied together, all the elements, so that it doesn't just fall out when you wash the stabilizer away. Do we have any tutorials on digitizing freestanding lace? Not yet. It is on the list. I did go check and make sure it was on the list, and it's just none of us have had a chance to go and actually make a design, because we need to have a design to be able to talk through the different techniques of it. So, and give you guys something to try. Let's see, any other questions? That's all I had sent in. So let's see, any other questions? Oh yeah, someone else, with getting your artwork, if you have Illustrator, you can copy the vectors out of Illustrator and paste them straight into DesignShop. I do that most of the time. All right, any other questions? Oh yeah, Nate brings up a good point. If you are sewing on heirloom pieces, so, you know, Granny tatted this beautiful thing and now you want to sew um, something onto it, don't go for broke on that. Try it on something that you find at Goodwill or at the store. Test it, because there's nothing worse than sewing on an heirloom and then having the threads fall out. Now you got to clean it up and hope you didn't mess it up. So always, it's particularly if you've never tried anything before, it's always a good idea to test out on something that isn't your final product. You don't want to be ruining heirlooms. All right, any other questions? I don't see any typed in. I'll look foolish for, what is a vector? A vector is math-based artwork. So let's see. So a bitmap, so you've got vectors and rasters, raster graphics and vector graphics. Raster-based graphics are all pixel-based, so that's something like you would get out of a scanner or a camera. When you take a picture, it records a bunch of little blocks filled with a color. All right, well, on the other hand, vector-based graphics are things that are math-based. Someone took the time to draw it out. So here, this is an example. Each one of these, this is a vector, right? It's got a wireframe to it and a color. Someone drew this shape, and while it has no thread, it's scalable. So you can make it as big as you want or as small as you want, and it will hold the clarity of the shape because it's math-based. It's got an actual shape associated with it rather than just squares colored in. Okay, one of the things you'll notice with raster-based graphics like your JPEGs and your bitmaps, TIFFs, things like that, when you start making them, if someone gives you a really low quality image that's tiny, they want it 1 inch, and they said, hey, here's my graphic, it's about an inch big, you know, 70 DPI or something silly like that. Can you digitize it for the back of a jacket? And you go, all right, no problem. You scale it up and you can't tell what you're looking at anymore because it's a whole blur because all the pixels are spread out. You would want to ask for better artwork. Either get a higher resolution that you can actually scale up, or better yet, get a vector. Because vectors, it doesn't matter what size they give it to you. You can scale it, shrink it, whatever you want. Okay. Let's see. All right, Nate answered that way shorter than I did. Sorry. Any other questions? I don't see any. I'll look foolish for a minute more, and then I'll go ahead and log off. Well, I hope these are helpful for you. So, practice, sewing, digitize. If you run into questions during the week, write them down so that we have something to talk about on these Fridays. And remember, it's usually around Wednesday, the event for Friday gets posted. So go type in your questions, and we'll get examples or try to get them answered. Or if I don't know it, I'll go find the answer for you. All right. All right, well, you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy your quarantine. Wash your hands. Wear masks, I guess.